Hi. So today we'll be moving from a sort of neuroscience to environmental science. So let's get started. Alright, so first we'll start out talking about the parts of a neuron. So an electric signal comes in, enters one of the dendrites, which is just sort of a branched molecule that is meant for receiving electric signals, goes through the body called the soma, to the nucleus right here. And then it enters this wire-like molecular structure called the axon, and this is just kind of like the copper wire conductor of the neuron. And then these are myelin bodies, or myelin sheaths, which are kind of like insulators so that the electric signal doesn't get passed on to someone else or some other neuron from here. So the electric signal is conducted all the way to the axon terminals where it is conducted to another neuron. So let's focus on the dendrites for a second here. So they're just branched molecular structures which receive electric signals. And so these belong to a family of macromolecules called dendritic macromolecules. And really, they're just branched molecules that adhere to some sort of substance. Here, it's electric signals, electrochemical signals, which kind of adhere to the little branches that it has. But you could design the surface of this sort of branched molecular structure to adhere to anything. And so, designed molecules like this can be known as really any kind of dendritic macromolecule, but ones that are well known are dendrimers. And so dendrimers are just kind of like dendrites, but they make a circular shape, and they branch out like 50 to 100 times, and they have many different purposes, and this just kind of goes all the way around. They have many different purposes. And so they can adhere to heavy metals, plastics, really many kinds of molecules. And so that's why they're useful in things like filters, where you need to adhere to certain molecules to clean up. Alright, so now let's talk about filters. So you have a pipe, and you have a current of water flowing through the pipe, and you've got a filter right here. These are the little pores in the filter. And so you release some dendrimers in there, and they can be for any really specific purpose, so they can adhere to plastics or heavy metals that are in the water. And so as they're flowing through, they attach. So let's zoom in here. These dendrimers attach to all these contaminants. When they flow through, they get filtered out from the filter, and only the clean water flows through. So that's the most basic structure for this. And so what if we took this to the next level and made it so that when the water flowed through, this is an arrow, and the water flowed through the pipe, this filter didn't go all the way around to the circumference of the pipe. Instead, there were blades, and these blades caused the filter to spin around as water passed through it. And so you could connect this sort of rotor to electromagnet, where the magnet spun around inside coils of wire, and you get electron flow. And so this is a way to combine hydroelectric power with a filter. But the problem is here that there's so much pressure on this filter that it's bound to break at some point. And plus, the size of these blades is very inefficient compared to what it could be if it was larger scale. So let's make it larger scale. So now let's say we're in the ocean. We've got a buoy right here. This buoy floats up and down as the waves pass by. And so this buoy could be connected to some sort of wire that's attached to the floor, or really not a wire but a magnet that's really thin and it's attached to the ocean floor. And then you've got some sort of wire right here that goes up and down as the buoy goes up and down because of the waves. There you go, you've got an electromagnet, and this is a previously existing idea. But what if we incorporated this with the dendrimer filter? So there's this teenager a few years ago named Boyan Slat, and his idea was to use some sort of ship like this, sail across the Pacific garbage patch, and within 5 years it would be cleared up. It's quite a genius idea, but what if we incorporated dendrimers with this design? We release them, contaminants adhered to the dendrimers, and then they were picked back up, and it's filtered out of something that's much larger scale where hydroelectric power could work much more efficiently with the filter still running at a good efficiency. And so a lot of these ideas were already previously existing, but combining them would create such an efficient system that it could be used across the world in oceans such as the Pacific, where there are a lot of pollutants and contaminants in the water. Alright, so how easy is it to obtain these dendrites and dendrimers and any kind of dendritic macromolecules? So this is just kind of the basis of how the dendritic macromolecules are formed. So they can either be formed divergently from the inside out or convergently from the outside in. And then this is a dendrimer, which kind of makes a perfect circle there. And then this is just a dendron, which makes multiple dendrons make a dendrimer. Then this is a dendrograft, where they branch out from the central point, and then if this kind of has endpoints, the dendrograft has endpoints, then you have a hyperbranched polymer. So how easy is it to obtain these? Well, usually these are made in labs, and they can be reused, like when they're filtered out, and you have these dendrimers with all these contaminants. It's a very simple chemical reaction to take off the contaminants and reuse the dendrimers. But how easy is it to make these dendrimers in the first place? Well, dendrimers can be made from dendrons, and dendrons, a type of dendron is a dendrite, which, as I explained earlier, is found in brain cells. And so now we have a way of obtaining it. So really, you have to take out brain cells, preserve them if needed, which they won't really need to be preserved. But this makes it much easier to obtain the source of filtration than other sources of filtration, such as all the complex systems that they use today to purify water. So this is how easy it is to obtain it. You cut into a chicken's head and you obtain its neurons. That's really what it is.